Today, we're talking about the one word that describes the Chicago Bulls offseason. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Monis Mazelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are talking about the one word that describes the Chicago Bulls offseason. And so I got a chance to see this article on Bleacher Report, and it's talking about the one word that describes every NBA team's offseason. And so this is the word that they had for the Chicago Bulls, and it says caved. And so this is what was written about the Chicago Bulls. And so I'm really not going to go into this too much, just paraphrasing, just the major points out of this. And so talking about Josh Giddey, his 4-year, $100 million contract, and just really how this came out to be, a compromise. And then also, too, talking about this on the last line where it says that Chicago could have pushed him harder, daring him to take his $11.4 million qualifying offer. Instead, the Bulls caved. And so, going to the question here, did the Bulls really cave this offseason? And so I completely disagree, with what is written here. The Bulls did not cave this offseason, and I think that the Bulls actually had a solid offseason. That is the word that I have for the Chicago Bulls, a solid offseason. And so let's start with the first point that's, kind of brought up here in this piece and talking about Josh Giddey and the contract situation. And so, look, I think that this is terrific value for Josh Giddey, the 4 years, $100 million. And yes, it is a compromise. And I like that, because both sides had to give up something and they got it done. You have Josh Giddey and his camp. Reportedly, they were looking for $30 million. Again, we don't know really if that was the case. We'll find out about that come media day, which I talked about that really in yesterday's video, that yes, there's going to be a lot of questions around that. But then the Bulls, they were reported at $20 million and they ended up giving $25 million. And so I don't have a problem with that either, because when you look at Josh Giddey and you look at the production that he had, so just not even looking at how he finished down the stretch where he almost averaged a triple-double, this was his numbers to end the season: 14.6 points per game, 1.2 steals per game, which was actually a career high so far for him. Then the 7.2 assists, the 8.1 with the rebounds. He shot 78.1% from the free throw line, and he shot a career best 37.8 from downtown, and his field goal percentage 46.5%. So a second or third best in his career. And so still looked pretty good in this offense. And so again, I think that this really just shows you that the Bulls perhaps got a bargain here, because I think that Josh Giddey has another level to get to, just like Kobe White and some other players that we've really been talking about throughout the offseason. And so I think that when you look back at that 4-year for $100 million, it could be a steal for the Chicago Bulls. And also, too, the fact that it's just the 4 years, he still has a chance to go out and get another big contract here from the Chicago Bulls or somebody else. Like, the Bulls took care of business here. And, you didn't want to go out and have him get the qualifying offer, because you traded off Alex Caruso for him in a straight up trade. And so I think that that would have been disastrous for the Bulls to get him on a qualifying offer. And then essentially, I think he probably doesn't come back to you. And so the fact that you get him taken care of on this deal, and now you can go ahead and concentrate on your team build. AK feels very good about this backcourt, and so let's see what happens. I've been saying that I think that this team is set to take another step forward with this offensive system. There's no Zach LaVine in the way at this point in time. Josh Giddey has told you that he believes he's the player that he was at the end of the season, and that player can definitely do some damage in this league. And so I think just that whole notion of the Bulls, should have went ahead and pressured him to the qualifying offer. I do not agree with that. And I think that just the compromise was a great move for the Bulls. And then aside from just the Josh Giddey stuff, The Tre Jones re-signing, I think, was a very solid move for the Chicago Bulls because you're looking at a player that comes in that is trusted by Billy Donovan. We had heard reports that Billy Donovan definitely wanted Tre Jones back. I was wondering, would they bring Tre Jones back with Lonzo Ball still on the roster? And I think because Tre Jones played so well last season, it just made it to the point where AK and the front office felt comfortable going ahead and dealing Lonzo Ball off. And by getting Tre Jones here and now taking over that slot, you have a player that potentially can play all 82 games, so you don't have the injury concern with that. You have a true point guard that has a lot of the same basketball IQ as Lonzo Ball. No, I'm not saying that he is Lonzo Ball, but from a point guard standpoint, he's a guy that gets you involved. Now, he's not going to make just the full court pass for a dunk, off of a rebound like Lonzo Ball, because that's what Lonzo Ball does. But still, he will find you and get you into a place to score the basketball. And I loved his offense and just his efficiency. Like, this is a guy that's very crafty around the basket, and he's a guy that doesn't need a whole bunch of volume to be really impactful in a game. And so you put him into the second unit, excuse me, and then you look at the fact that if somebody does go down, he's an insurance policy for you. And so if Josh Giddey goes down with an ankle injury, you can plug in, Tre Jones. And I just said that because, Josh Giddey did get an injury last season. Or if Kobe White goes down or somebody else, you can put him in there. And so he's a player that if you want to play small ball, you can feel comfortable with that. And so I think that he was a very underrated re-signing here in free agency for the Chicago Bulls. And then next, I think not enough people talk about Isaac Okoro and just that addition. And so, yes, I know Isaac Okoro is not coming in as a scorer. I get all of that. But the fact that Isaac Okoro guards very well and defensively, he has the potential to really cause chaos, that is going to help the Chicago Bulls out a lot, especially when you're talking about adding that with Ayo Dosunmu. That actually is going to help probably the interior of the defense for the Chicago Bulls. And so that is one of the problems, I think, with the Bulls, is just kind of giving up the paint touches and the scores and stuff like that. But I think that these guys are going to bring a level of intensity. They're going to bring some physicality from the perimeter standpoint and really make it tough to get downhill there. And so, yes, there's definitely going to be some concerns with the interior defense, but I do think because you bring Isaac Okoro over, this is going to help you. And I also think that one of the things that people are not factoring in with him is that I think that he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, just like Josh Giddey did a season ago. And he's probably going to want to show out, because I think that that's another thing that Josh Giddey did. You got to give him credit for that, because, I think that he believed that he was a starter in this league, and he bet on himself. He got the chance and he took off with that opportunity. I think that Isaac Okoro is in that same type of opportunity where he wants to be given a chance, given an expanded role. He's going to get a chance here with the Chicago Bulls, and I think he's going to run with it. And I think he is going to shock some people here. And so that is why I have the Bulls down as a solid offseason, because when you look at just those, everything that we talked about, this team stayed together and they added players that, are more reliable as far as being out there, because you don't have Lonzo Ball, not to take anything away from him, but the injury concerns were very real. And you really have just, I think, kind of fixed, or hopefully you fixed one of the things that I think you could definitely get better at was the defense. You've got players that fit your system. And with the Eastern Conference really being up in the air, with the Pacers and the Bucks and things like that, the fact that you've kept everything together and you've added, I think, a little bit more, you got to give the Bulls credit there. And so I think that they had a solid offseason and they did not cave. So solid for me, not cave. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Did the Bulls cave this offseason, or do you have that as their word for their offseason? Again, I have it solid. And remember this too. Yes, AK did not make a major trade this offseason. And honestly, I don't know if there is a trade that he's going to make that is just going to drastically turn the team around like that. Because even if you do move off of Kobe, you move off of, Io, or just whatever he decides to do, if he decides to trade anybody, there's not a perfect trade out there. Like, there's still other things that would have to happen in order for things to work out here. And so I get that, we maybe wanted to see a trade, maybe some of us, but there's no splash move out there. And I think that you have to give AK in this front office a lot of credit for keeping this thing together for the most part and adding some players that can really kind of help you go along here as you continue to build out this team. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, go Bulls. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.